Welcome back, Unstoppable fans. I'm Isabelle Schmeler, and joining me today for a very important and timely discussion is GW women's basketball point guard Maddie Loder. You all know Maddie for her unparalleled skills on the court, starting out as a top-tier freshman back in the 2018-2019 season, and now has emerged as a leader on the court, finishing out the 2020 season back on campus last season. So now that Maddie's here with us, she's actually not going to be talking about basketball. She's here to talk with us about the importance of voting with only 1 week until Election Day on November 3rd. Maddie's actually started a voting initiative earlier this summer to ensure athletes throughout the GW community are aware of how to vote, where to vote, and why to vote this election. So Maddie, thanks so much for being with us today. It's so exciting to finally have you on the show. And can you just talk a little bit about this initiative and why you chose to start it?
Yeah, for sure. So first off, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to finally be on the show. So the initiative started way back in the summer. So I'm from Minnesota, and so when all of the protests following George Floyd's death were happening, I was trying to figure out what is the best way for me to create meaningful change. How can I make sure that this doesn't happen again? And unfortunately it has, and that's why this election is so important. But yeah, so I talked to one of my coaches. I said, hey, I've got this idea. Why don't we work with just our team and we figure out how what issues are really important to us and what representatives are voting that way and how can we vote? And he said, okay, well, let's take it to the athletic department level and let's do it through the athletic department. And from there, we just kind of worked on it all summer, and it turned into the Only a GW Voting Initiative, which is the big name of it. But we've had 2 panels, one with Frank Sesno of the School of Media and Public Affairs, which was really awesome. And he talked a lot about his time working in the media around government and that type of stuff, but also focused a lot on why it's important to vote. Everybody left thinking, okay, I have to vote because my vote actually makes a difference. And that was really great to see taken away from that. And then just recently, we had a special assistant to Kamala Harris, hopefully the VP candidate. Her special assistant is a GW graduate, and so she was on with our SAC president, and they had a panel where they talked to her about everything. And yeah, that was really awesome too. So it's turned into more of the panels and making sure people understand that their vote actually counts and they need to vote. So it started off with kind of a registration challenge, getting student athletes to register to vote and showcase where they're registered to vote. And that's really important to have, voter pride, know that if somebody else is going to vote, you should be voting too. And then we're working on some education portions, giving people the resources to figure out what candidates in their area they should vote for, who they can vote for, where do their values align with candidates' values, and what is the best way that those are going to be showcased on a more governmental level and a level that will actually have change occur.
That's awesome to hear. And like you said, you're actually from Minnesota, which is where the death of George Floyd happened, and it's sparked action across the world, and specifically with athletes across industries in the NBA and the MLB and also in the NFL. And then we also saw the Milwaukee Bucks sit out their 5th game of the playoffs following the shooting of James Blake in Kenosha. And so we've seen sort of a spark of activism across athletes in all industries. And so I'm wondering, given that we are GW students and we go to school at one of the most politically active campuses in the country, in the middle of Washington, D.C., blocks from the White House, what role specifically do you feel that GW athletes play in this election? And on a more specific level, what exactly is the GW women's basketball team doing to showcase your involvement, not just around voting, but also through the Black Lives Matter movement and bringing attention to this movement?
Yeah, I'm going to start with that first question. I think being a GW student is so important during this time because we have the opportunity to do all sorts of things. My team was able to socially distant but attend the March on Washington. That was really powerful. And I mean, I saw pictures from every person that I knew that was in DC at the time. They were there. And I think that's just a testament to what it is to be a GW student. You get to be part of a movement. You get to be part of the action that's being taken in this country. But also I think it gives us the chance to be an example for other people. So being in DC, we're the people who are the closest to what everyone assumes is the government, basically. And I think by showcasing our activism and saying, hey, you've got to vote, you need to get registered, what can I do to help you to get registered, how can I help you to get your absentee ballot, all that stuff. I think it's really powerful to be a GW student because we're now the example of how to do it, how to be civically active. But also with that, my teammates have also done a lot of work this summer on their own with different organizations. We've got a good bulk of our team part of Athletes Driving Change, which is a A10, I don't know exactly the details, but it's an A10 women's basketball started organization that focuses on change, obviously. Most like Black Lives Matter, they're very that's like their big one, but they're also looking at voting initiatives, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's been really awesome to see their involvement in that and kind of moving that forward into the limelight with everything that's going on. But also we've had a lot of conversations as a team about what it means to be an ally, what it means to be, a Black woman, because a lot of my teammates are, and they live it firsthand, and we have to be great allies to them and great allies all the time to everyone. But those conversations were really, really important this summer. And I think that really not only bonded our team, but it made us all better people. And it all made us more socially aware and understand just a little bit better about how we can help and what's going on. So we're having a lot of, Black Lives Matter games. We're going to do what we can to move it forward. And if it's just a small step and we're just a small part of the big movement, that's good enough for us for now.
That's great to hear. And you're right that being a GW athlete means so much more than just being an athlete, because you are right in the middle of Washington, D.C. It's almost impossible to not be involved with what's going on around you. And so with that, what is the general consensus around athletes that you've talked to about actually following through with their plan to vote? Because there are so many ways that you can do so this election, given the COVID-19 circumstances. And I know a lot of athletes are still on campus, so they're not able to vote at their home polling locations in person. And so just making sure that people actually have their mail-in ballots and are going to walk to the post office or to the mailbox and actually deliver it. So what are some things that you guys are pushing for, or that the GW athletics department is doing to make sure that, voting is actually happening for the athletes?
Yeah, I think once the election is over, my teammates are going to be very happy because they're going to stop hearing from me about, hey, have you gotten your absentee ballot? Hey, are you sure you're registered? Have you gotten your ballot? I've helped like half of my team figure out how to get their absentee ballot, and then they'll text me. They're like, "Oh, hey, I got it today." So that's part of it, is like I'm constantly badgering them. I'm like, "Hey guys, let's make sure that we're doing this," because like it's important to do, and it's important to them as well. But it also is nice to have little reminders. But the athletic department is putting out through SAC. They're putting out some videos that kind of are educational, leading up every week to election day, kind of reminding people, educating people on how to do things in regards to voting. And that's been really great to see as well. But yeah, I think we're putting it in the hands of the people, hoping that they realize that the importance is there, and that we've pushed that, hey, this is really, really important. And if you never vote again and you vote this year, do it. Like, this is that important.
Do you feel like there's an increased sense of urgency, not just on your team, on the women's basketball team, but just with GW athletes in general, given the stakes of this election?
I think so, but I also feel like young people are voting this year. Like, this is my first year voting, and so I think part of the urgency comes from a little bit of excitement getting to be part of the decision. Young people are the best college age people like you and I are like the best people to push for this because we have so many more years to push for it. And so starting it now as part of the urgency is like, we want to make this change now, but we also want to sustain it. Like, this is not just one time thing. It's going to be a longevity where we're voting every year, and you're going to see the voting upticks because people who are even younger than you and I who are in high school are also getting really into it. So I think there's urgency from different directions, but I think it stems from the excitement of being able to be a part of something bigger than everyone.
Yeah, and that leads me into my final question. Like you said, these conversations don't end after November 3rd. What are some things that you have planned in mind after the election to continue having these conversations about political engagement and just being involved with what's going on around us?
Yeah, a big part of what we're doing this year, because we're obviously not going to have fans in the stands, is dedicating games to things we're passionate about. So we're going to have, a Black Lives Matter month. It's not just going to be one game, and obviously a month isn't enough to get the importance across, but it's starting there and thinking about it all the time. It's like, I think a lot about the WNBA, who dedicated their entire season to Breonna Taylor, and they were so adamant about that, and that was their reason for being there. And so I think that's kind of a little bit of the way that people are playing right now, is like, we can't have people in the stands, but we're going to make these games meaningful by dedicating them to topics that are really important to us. Mental health, Black Lives Matter, women in sports, all those type of things. And I mean, that's not necessarily the voting aspect of it, but that's topics that people are passionate about. We're also, going to keep doing things. We have an event on Saturday that was created by one of my teammates, actually, Faith. She set up this event where we're doing a power hour, where we're sitting down after practice for an hour and we're writing to our senators about things that we're passionate about, or we're writing to potential voters telling them that this election is really important, that they should make sure that they get registered or they get their ballots. So like stuff like that is going to continue. Smart, and they're very dedicated, and they're very passionate about so many different things that you can definitely count on us to make sure that this conversation does not stop.
Yeah, and that's so great to hear. And you're right, these issues don't just start with voting. They span far beyond November 3rd. And it's great to hear. It's really inspiring to hear that you guys are leading this initiative way past what happens on November 3rd. So, Maddie, thank you so much. That's all the time that we have for today. But to check out more information about Maddie's initiative, you can search up #only@GW's voting initiative. With that, thank you so much. And to our Unstoppable fans, let's do our part and vote this election. We'll see you next time on Unstoppable.